Gundrum Funeral Home and Crematory has been dedicated to serving the families of Logansport, Cass County, and the surrounding areas since 1901. As a third-generation family-owned funeral home, our staff can assist with all aspects of your funeral and cremation needs. We are proud of being the only funeral home in the Logansport and Cass County area to provide on-site cremations for humans and animals. Conveniently located at 16th and Broadway in Logansport, our funeral home has been extensively renovated, preserving its 19th century charm while adding features that families in need may appreciate, including a spacious chapel, casket selection room, a large family lounge, complimentary Wi-Fi, and live funeral streaming. Whether you need our services immediately or are interested in pre-planning for the future, we will be here to serve your family during their most difficult time. Gundrum Funeral Home and Crematory, serving families of Logansport and Cass County since 1901. Reach us anytime, day or night, at 574.
Thank you for coming this evening. Wonderful group of people on Friday night. I'm sure the family appreciates it also. We're going to do something a little different this evening. We're going to have you participate. I want to hear some stories. I want to hear some memories. And if you can't tell them in mixed company, then don't tell them at all.
Well,
You can tell them later. But we do appreciate you being here. This poem was given to me months and months ago by a friend of mine that passed away with COVID. And I just want to read this to you. The clock of life is wound but once, and no one has the power to know just when that clock will stop, late or early hour. So live, love, toil with a will, because my clock and your clock will someday stand still. And Chris's life clock has stopped, but the wonderful memories we have of him continues on. Aren't we thankful for that? And the family's going to come now and talk, and then we're going to have you, while they're talking, I want you to think about a memory or a short story, because we want to make sure everybody gets that chance this evening if they'd like to speak. This is being live streamed, so people from far off can hear this. People that are working can hear it. So we're live streaming it tonight. If you want to say something from where you're sitting, that's perfectly fine. But we'd like for you to come up to the podium if you can and speak from here so those people can see you. Okay? So we're going to let the family start first, okay?
Public speaking is not my forte, so bear with me. Ever since I was a little girl, I was always called my dad's shadow. Everywhere he went, I followed. It didn't matter if he was out in the wood pile splitting logs, or if he was in the barn just messing around, I was there. He was and still is one of my biggest role models. I remember visiting him nights. He was working at the station. Kyle Kim and I would always climb up the fire pole and see who could get the highest. Dad would then always show us each fire truck and what was inside every single compartment. I was always so obsessed with the idea of him becoming a fire chief that I also wanted to become a fire chief. I remember drawing pictures and writing letters to the chief at the time because I even had gear of my own, which I still have the gear. My dad was someone that everyone knew and loved. He was the most generous man that I have ever met. He would give the shirt off his back, even if that meant that his closet would be empty. And I think that's what made him so good at all of his jobs. Not only was he the most generous man I've ever met, but he was also the most dedicated and hardworking firefighter that I have ever seen. He served 28 and a half years at Logansport Fire Department, all while having a second job at EMA for over a decade. That man would eat, sleep, and breathe firefighting. And that doesn't even mention all the volunteer fire departments he was involved with while being on an active department. Then later he became his lifelong goal as a fire chief at Fire District 1. He was so stoked to show us his own personal fire chief card, and I'll never forget that smile. Most know he had not only one, but 2 Crown fire trucks. And those were some of his most prized possessions. But what most people might not know about was our basement. That was the ultimate firefighting man cave. Pictures, antiques, uniforms, bells, lights, sirens, he had it all down there. That was his escape. All of those things that he started collecting since he was probably about 18. Our dad taught us many things in life. Some made us mad, and some didn't make sense until we became adults, like never getting a real Christmas tree because it was a fire hazard, or never leave the dryer going even if you're only out of the house for 20 minutes. And I think candles were his arch enemies because I would light one and not even 20 minutes later that son of a bitch would be blown out. And don't get me started with extension cords. We don't go there. Those were never allowed. Looking back, I remember being annoyed and that he was always overprotective or overreacting. But now I realize he did all those things because he cared about us so much about us. He had seen the worst of a lot of situations. Dad always made everything about us and never about him. Whenever we would call or visit, the conversations were always about us. What were we doing and what were we up to? And if you would ever ask how he was, he'd simply just say, I'm fine, and move on. And that's how he always was, and that's how he always will be. Now we all know that he was very generous and warm-hearted and dedicated, but we can't fail to mention how stubborn he could be as well. If he had something set in his mind, you might as well save your breath because he's going to do it anyway. And I'm sure Devin, if he's still here, he can tell you more about the solar panels. I'm sure most of us have seen that side as well. I can't begin to explain or describe how sad or surprised that we all feel because it's always too soon and you're never ready. But I can be thankful for a lot of things. All the things that he taught us, like the basics in life, and that he was always our biggest role model and our #1 fan. Our last conversation was on Monday, and I was so excited to tell him about the new job that I got down in the ED, because he always had so many crazy stories to tell us, and now it was my turn to tell him about my crazy stories that I'm about to endure. His last words to me were, I'm so proud of you, my girl, and I love you. Those words will forever be in my heart. I love you, Dad. And don't worry, I'll still tell you all my stories and all the craziness that I see until we meet again.
For all of us that had the pleasure of knowing my dad, Jordan Young, he was a dedicated first responder, a generous friend, and a loving father. He started on the ambulance service while he was still in high school. He spent more than 28 years on the fire department and more than a decade at EMA, finally serving as a chief for the final 2 years before retirement. That was his dream. His entire career was dedicated to saving others, helping in emergencies, and trying to save the day. I can't even count the amount of times people have come up to me and said, your dad was there when this happened, or your dad helped me when that happened. All I ever wanted to do was help other people on their worst days. He was also there for his friends when they needed. Dad was the guy you called when things went to shit and you needed someone to help. He was the first person I called when I was in my accident. God had prayed, and he was one of the only people I was never nervous to talk about relationships with. I knew he wasn't going to scold or judge. I just knew he was going to be there to help. Above everything else, he was a loving father. On top of working 2 jobs, he still coached baseball for our little league teams. Went to every soccer game, track meet, band, concert. I honestly don't know how he had the energy for it all. on the off weekend that we didn't have something going on, we were out camping. And some of my favorite memories are just sitting around the campfire talking with him and some of our friends. He was always the one to take me to our orthodontist appointments. It was just him and me, and we'd get McDonald's afterwards before going back to school. And that time was always very special to me. I think we were also the only family that ever had fire drills. There's a chain ladder under Kyle and my bunk bed with thorough instructions and thorough training. Paired with army crawling down the stairs to avoid the imaginary smoke. You get out and you go to the pole barn, you get instructed. Don't go back for any. Even still, I joke with all my friends whenever I used to extension cord, Chris Gilbert would be pissed. He would do anything for anybody, and I wish he had more time to actually sit back and enjoy his retirement. He worked so hard for it. He deserved a lot more than he got. I hope he knows how loved he was, and how great of a friend and a father he was. I love you, Dad. Now rest.
I should have written it down, but I didn't. So. It all just happened so quick, so sudden, and everything I just keep thinking about is it's just been a dad for 2.5 years, and now that my dad's gone, I just I can't separate being a father and losing a father, and everything that being a father has opened my eyes up to what he has done for me and us as a father. And I just hope and that I can be as good a father as mine was to me, and I be able to pass on as much knowledge and as many stories as he can, that I can to my son and new baby. And it's just and the fact that they don't have all of that as from their grandfather, they're missing out a lot. And I just wish he was still here, because one of the most exciting things about being a dad was going to be able to take Ollie and the new baby out to his house and let them hear all of his stories, all of his nonsense. It's just, I don't know how to do it. I don't know how. I also don't know how to end speeches, so it's over.
Thank you very much. I know back in the 70s, I was telling some of the family back in the 70s, is when I met Chris, and we've been friends ever since. I don't know how many people in here remember Emergency, but Chris and I watched Emergency a lot. And he said, I'm going to be the Johnny Gage, and you're going to be the Roy DeSoto of the fire department. I went to this direction, and he went to the fire department. So you guys over here in the side room, we wouldn't have even needed you. Because we were going to take the fire station by storm. So it's okay. But it's a privilege. It's a privilege to be his friend. Some time ago, he came in here and just sat and talked to me and told me the things that he was going through. And but he was making it. He made it. He didn't feel sad about it or angry about it, but he was dealt the deal, and he came through it. He came through it. Is there anybody else that would like to say something? Yes. Come on up.
Throughout the course of my life, I've been blessed with what I like to call bonus parents. And at the age of 6, the world gave me 2 sets, the Bisons and the Cobras. At the time, I had no clue what this would mean for my life, and it's hard to narrow it down to just one story about Chris, so instead I'd like to share about his overall role in my life. I grew up surrounded by Chris and his family. We camped a lot. We traveled for joint family vacations, we celebrated holidays together, joined for all of life's new chapters and milestones, and anything in between that we could find. If you saw Brown, you usually saw a Cobra and a Vice somewhere close by. It's just how it was. Oh, and just to set the record straight, no, we were not related. And no, our parents did not plan for there to be a Kyle, and a Cameron, and a Cameron. Chris was the guy who taught us about fire safety, all while building some of the biggest and brightest campfires in the campground. He was the guy who helped me out of sticky situations more than once, and by sticky I mean literally sticky. If it weren't for Chris and Chris, I would probably still be stuck to a fly trap in their basement and have my finger caught in a mosquito wipe container. He was someone that all of us kids knew that we could count on, whether he could make us laugh, join in on the many made-up games that we came up with, and he was usually the last adult left at the campfire with all of us kids. I'll forever cherish the many memories I have of Chris and the time that our family spent together. He truly was one of a kind, and he'll be greatly missed. And I can only hope that he and Ron Buddes are somewhere catching up and playing spoons just like old times. And one day the gang will be back together, so they're gonna need all the practice they can get.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Go ahead.
I got permission to tell this first story. It goes back to when Chris first got on the fire department. Chris actually replaced me at the ambulance service. When I went on the fire department in 1980, he hired into the ambulance service and replaced me. And eventually Chris got hired. And approximately a year after he got hired on the fire department, he and Christina celebrated their first wedding anniversary. And those of you know about tradition, part of the tradition is you eat the top of the cake on your first anniversary. Well, we were at the old firehouse on 6th Street. Living quarters, everything was upstairs. Truck room was on the first floor. So we had 2 stairs going up, and before you came up, you rang the bell, and somebody stick their head down, what they told you want. And Christina comes. She's got a nice picnic basket with the top of the cake, bottle of champagne or wine? Wine. A rose, and a little bit of a picnic spread. She rings the bell, somebody sticks her head down. I don't know who it was, I don't think it was me. But somebody sticks her head down and, what is it? And she says, "Is my Pookie Bear here?" Well, Chris now had a nickname that's through his entire career. And so he goes down, and she tells him what he's got. And I can't drink wine on duty. I can't yada, yada, yada. Firefighters and EMS have their own sense of humor. The EMS is just a little sicker than a firefighter. But we've got our own sense of humor. Somebody let her know that he had been told he could have the day off because it was their wedding anniversary. He didn't have a year on yet, so he didn't think he should take any time off. He had to be at the station. But she didn't know us yet. She didn't know we had a sense of humor. She threw the rose at him, and I think she left the picnic basket. Not sure if she left the wine or not, but she stormed out. So we're actually surprised that he made it to a second anniversary. That nickname.
I think I paid you one.
I think he did too. I think he did too. And because she didn't know our sense of humor. So, but, she finally got to know us. The other story I want to tell is something that we used to joke with Chris about. Many of you know that for a short period of time he was a reserve sheriff's deputy. And he applied for a handgun permit so he could carry a weapon. And the state police informed him he did not need one because he was a reserve deputy. As a reserve deputy, he could carry one. The problem is, if he is no longer reserved, he can't carry a weapon without the permit. So the joke was that Hootie couldn't even get a gun permit, even though he was a reserve deputy. And as far as I know, he never did get one. So those are two stories that I can share in mixed company. I love you, you little wench.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I better go. I'll tell him quick.
Yeah.
No,
No tangents.
it's mixed company, Jim.
You got 10 minutes.
Please. Anybody else? I'm gonna repeat that story. Guys, it's reminding me of something tonight. It's a really good one. Those of you who don't know me, I'm Jim Engel.
Time's up. Somebody knows you.
I rode the ambulance for several years. I was on the Logansport Fire Department for several years, and Chris Cover and I were thicker than thieves. For you guys that are still in EMS and fire, God bless you. I was sitting back there thinking, watching this, is there anybody in here that can listen to Vince Gill sing Go Rest High and not cry or shed a tear? Anybody do that? That song's a killer. That song's a killer. It was Christmas morning, 1980, 3 o'clock. Chris and I were nights together. And the call came in for an elderly woman with abdominal pain at Jamestown Apartments. So Chris and I get in the truck, take off. And I told him when we left the hospital, I said, I'll bet you $100 when we get to that apartment, she's not gonna have a tree, she's not gonna have lights, and there will be nobody else there. We go up, knock on the door, she lets us in, nothing. It looked like the middle of July in her apartment. There was nothing to suggest Christmas or a celebration. So she was complaining of abdominal pain, so I right away went into assessing her and discovered that she had a bottle of blueberry wine, blackberry wine, on the kitchen counter with about this much left in it. And I stuck my nose in it and it smells bad, that's bad. And she had another bottle next to it that hadn't been opened. So I said, did you drink this? She said, yes. I said, this wine's not any good, let's try this. So we opened that one up, took a smell of it, smelled like it was freshly picked fruit. And she had a turkey roll on the stove that she had prepared for nobody. And I said, are you expecting company? And she said, no, I don't have any family, no one will be in. And I said, do you have any Maalox? And she said, yes. I said, I want you to take a tablespoon of Maalox. So she took some Maalox and we waited for a few minutes, and by the hand of Jimbo, she's feeling better. And I said, Chris, pull up the seat. So she broke out the wine glasses, she sliced the turkey roll, and the three of us sat down and had a Christmas morning dinner with her at 4 o'clock in the morning. And when we went out, Chris said, I've never seen anything like that before in my life. I said, well, that's just the way we do it, Chris. That's how we roll, you know, give them what they need, give them what they want on most occasions. And that's usually a pretty good outcome. But that's the one story, and I have to watch in the back for this. You know, cut it off.
That's all it take.
That's all they can take. That's all they can take. I got several more, but hey, maybe we'll get together later and tell you some more intricate things about Chris Cover. He was a great firefighter, great EMT. And he was a great friend. Glorious topic, Chris.
Anyone else?
Yeah, follow that.
Me and Chris went to school from second grade on. We had a lot of good times together. Never seen a guy that loved emergency as much as Chris, that he went and bought 2 Crown fire trucks. And I always admired Chris. He had a beautiful family. He started out as an EMT right out of high school. I mean, we graduated in 1980, and he was an EMT in 1980. I mean, I didn't think he was big enough to pick somebody up back in the day. And he grew. But over the years, later on, I, kind of got the itch, and I got on the fire department too. So we got to work together for several years. But I just never seen anybody that is dedicated to the fire service as much as Chris, or EMS, or the sheriff's department, or anything. It's like, I was always amazed how he found time to do the stuff that he did. He was on EMA. When the first time I saw that he was on the sheriff's department, I went, how in the hell do you do all this? I mean, I didn't get it, It's like the guy, I don't know how he had all this time at home, because he was always doing something. I mean, he loved action. He loved fire service. He loved EMS. I mean, so many good stories back in the day, but he was a good dad. I loved his camping stories and all this stuff at the fire department. But I did see Chris get really, really mad one time. It was like a blizzard out one time. And he got stuck on the way to work. And he called in, and Don Rosie answered the phone. Don was kind of a cranky guy, wasn't he, Jim? Anyway, I honestly think Don thought he was kidding. He said, I'm stuck, whatever, send the truck out to get me. And I forget what Don said to him, but whatever it wasn't good, because when Chris come flying through the door when he finally made it to the station, I mean, I'm not kidding you, I know he was Don was already gone, thank God, but he had an axe in his hand and he was gonna kill him. And I think he really was scared. And I never seen Chris get mad, ever, the whole, besides that, but he was mad, and he was mad for a long time, but Chris is a great guy. I mean, I got tons of stories, but I won't bore you with them, tell them later, but good guy, I'm gonna miss him, and hope he's up at Squad 51 in the sky, because that's what he loves.
Anyone else? Maybe anybody? Make sure everybody gets a chance. It's awful quiet, a lot of smiles. You'll be telling those memories to come. I'm going to have Chris come. We're going to do some things, or she's going to do some things after this service, and she's going to come and kind of talk to you about it. Okay?
I'm used to it.
We hear you. Like somebody said, one of Christopher's very best friends was Ron Bettis. I mean, they were like peas and in carrots, and they were just both there for each other for anything. And today, in his service, is the 20th anniversary of Bettis' death. And I know Ron's up there saying, hey Cole, come on. It's time you join me. So I do find peace in that. The kids and I would like to invite you to the Riverview restaurant behind the old Firestone building. Please come and share more stories. Grover, I haven't seen you in a couple days. I love these faces. I look around and there's just so many memories that you guys have. And yes, I divorced him, but I loved him in my heart and soul. And I told him a while back that I do believe he was my soulmate because nobody else's hand that's like his and mine.
to remain seated, and somebody will come in and dismiss you by rows. On that back table, as I was putting stuff out for Chris's memorial service tonight, I found this on, and it's in that back table, and I want to read this to you. It's a fireman's prayer. It says, Lord, I ask you to be with me in a very special way as I face the challenges of a firefighter's day. I pray that you will help me to be the best that I can be, for there are many people who do depend on me. And when duty calls to danger, walk closely by my side, instill in me great courage. Please be my strength, my guide. And whatever I am called to do, always thankful I will be that you have been the unseen guest walking next to me. Thank you, Chris, for being my friend. Remain seated, please.